Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw-Milhaven.
All right, every Thursday night, I love Thursday nights for all sorts of reasons. But tonight we're going to check in with Bill Cleveland. Bill on the road. He's a roving America at Night correspondent, I guess, is the official term for you, Bill. We still haven't given you a title yet, have we?
Yeah, that's what I have on the office door. It's a little hard to fit that all across the plaque there. But yeah, all something like that.
Well, for those who are just joining us, we've been following you as you got locked out of your hotel room somewhere in California. And then last week you were broadcasting from an Airbnb from some guy's bedroom. He was downstairs making dinner, and you were upstairs on the radio.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on a second here. Let's just, let's not start any rumors. But yeah, no.
All right. Well, you want to go rogue tonight because in honor of Johnny Cash.
Yeah, absolutely. And if in case you're wondering, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona tonight. I had a book signing here, so it was 92 degrees here today. So how about that?
All right, hold on a second. Where was the book signing in Phoenix?
It was in what I would call a suburb called Sun City. It's a huge retirement community, and the lady, God love her, that introduced me on stage. Or what was this, yesterday? She kept calling me Bill Cleveland. We're so honored to have Mr. Cleveland here today, and maybe you'll remember Mr. Cleveland's first book that he came out and on. And I'm a nice guy, right? So I could not in front of 200 people get up and go, "Excuse me, ma'am, it's Cleveland. It's Cleveland." So I was Bill Cleveland for the day yesterday, and
fantastic.
Shout out to Sun City.
Yeah, I know Sun City very well. That's on the other side of the valley. My sister lives in Scottsdale, so I know the valley relatively well. All right, good. All right, so you're in Phoenix, and let's talk Johnny Cash. Yeah, okay. Let's talk Johnny Cash, though, because why? It's his birthday today?
Yeah, Johnny Cash. He would have been 94 years old today. I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan. I became a fan later in life, but I really like Johnny Cash, and I've been to I guess pretty much all of the Johnny Cash sites across the country. I thought I'd share a few of them with you and the listeners tonight for folks who might be a fan. And so you probably know he was born in Kingsland, Arkansas. The birthplace is no longer there. They got a little plaque where the home would have been. But what is around is the boyhood home of Johnny Cash, and it's in a town called Dyess, Arkansas. And it's a pretty cool story. So the home has always been there. It was part of the FDR's New Deal. So families could get a house and some farming land that they would work on. And if you've ever seen the movie Walk the Line, which is just a phenomenal movie and a bio of Johnny Cash, you've seen a replica of that home. Some of the the early part of the movie is kind of based around his time in that colony and in that house. And so it's still there. And people would come by for years and years, and they would see this house, and it was just dilapidated and in such horrible shape. And people thought, oh, Johnny Cash lived in this, horrible, poor little area and everything. But what really, the house was actually really nice, and it just had kind of fallen into disrepair. So Arkansas State University came in, they bought the property, they spent a lot of money. In fact, I believe the number was like $100,000 in like concrete alone because the home was sinking. So they raised the house back up, put it back the way that it was when Johnny Cash lived there. And then I think it was 2009, 2010, they opened it up for people to go through and tour. And so it's about, I don't know, I want to say 5-6 miles off of Interstate 55 before you get down to Memphis. And you're on this unpaved dirt road that takes you to this house. And boy, you really feel like you're back in that movie Walk the Line, because they show that scenery, right? And tiny little house. But you go into, his bedroom. They've got actually a piano that the Cash family owned. It's really, really neat. And it's, if you're going down to Memphis, I would absolutely suggest that be one of the stops that you make.
Do you just show up at the door? Do you have to go and buy tickets? How does that work?
So there is what you would call like a visitor center. So
Okay.
they had this. It was a colony. They called it a colony again. It was part of this New Deal program, and so there were a bunch of homes at one time. There aren't very many left anymore. And so there's a little visitor center, and yeah, you'll get a ticket, and then they do tours all throughout the year, several times a day. You can check that out. So
You know,
that's a neat one. Yeah.
you're like me, man. I going and visiting people's boyhood homes. I don't know why. I don't know if everyone's that way. I don't know if we're just weird, but
Yes.
I find that the most fascinating thing in the world to go visit some famous person's home. I don't know why that's so interesting, but to me,
Well,
I'm with you. That's a stop along the trail for sure.
No, absolutely. And I wrote a travel book called Finding the American Dream a few years ago. I think it came out in 2020. And that particular book was inspired by my visit to the Johnny Cash home because, like you mentioned, when you're standing in a childhood home or, a birthplace of someone and you know how far they made it in life, it's pretty cool, like to be like, wow, they came from here.
Yeah.
And to me, it just kind of reiterates this whole American dream thing where it doesn't matter where you come from. And Johnny Cash obviously proved, work hard. Yeah, you need a little bit of luck along the way, but yeah, it was just a really neat experience. I'll never forget going there. And then we
All right.
mentioned Memphis, Sun Studio. You can tour Sun Studio. That, of course, is where Cash was discovered by Sam Phillips after
Right.
he left the Air Force. That's a must do. I posted a picture online earlier today of Johnny Cash's home in Hendersonville, Tennessee. So that house is no longer there. I don't know if you know that there's a plaque out front, and there's like the guard gate is still there, but it's really sad. This was also a home that was featured in that movie Walk the Line, and it burnt down shortly after that. The Cash family had sold it to Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees,
Oh,
and they were
wow.
doing some construction work on it. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was somebody left a cigarette or something around, and the whole house went up in flames. And so the house is no longer there, which is really kind of sad because it was a really cool home and it overlooked the water and a lot of history there. And so that's no longer there. However, there is a really cool property that is still around, and folks should absolutely go to this one. So it's in a town called Bon Aqua, Tennessee. And I'll tell you the shortened version of this story. So Johnny Cash had an accountant that was embezzling money from him. And with this money, that accountant purchased some property in Bon Aqua, Tennessee, which is, I guess it would be it would be west of Nashville, maybe an hour away from Nashville, if that. And it's called the Hideaway Farm. And so when Johnny Cash found out this guy was embezzling money from him, he learned of this property and he loved it. And so he kept the property, and this is where he would go after, just to get away from Nashville and just to get away from everything. Just a beautiful property. And I have to tell you, so I went to see this place about 5 years ago. I was on my way back to the St. Louis area, and I knew this place existed. It had just opened to the public, but I was going to be a little bit late. And so I called the office there, the little museum office that they have, and I kind of begged and pleaded and pulled the old "I'm a travel writer" line. And I said, is there any way that you can just keep it open for another 30 minutes? I would be so grateful. And they were super nice, and they said, yeah, absolutely. So I get there. I check in at the little museum, and the lady says to me, she's like, okay, so you just go right down the street. It's just about a mile and a half. And when you get to the gates, text me and I'll open the gates for you. And I was like, cool. So you get down to you could obviously tell it was the Cash family, place, because it's got the music notes on the metal gate and everything. And so she opens the gate, and I drive in, and I basically have, I've got the place to myself. So I'm taking pictures, I'm walking around, I got, my tripod out, I'm taking some photos of me on the front porch, I'm loving all of this. And I thought, I wonder if it's open. Like, can I go in, So I pull on the front door, and I open the front door, and McGraw, there's like 15 people inside the house. And I said, oh my God. And they all stop and they all look at me. And it was Johnny Cash's nephews and I think one of his sisters were all in the house. And to their credit, they didn't shoot at me. And I said, "Oh my God, I am so sorry." And I quickly explained who I was, and they were like, "Oh, no, 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 come on in, come on in." So I go inside the house, and I'm hanging out with these people, and they could not have been nicer. They're like, "Hey, this was John's favorite leather chair. You got to get a picture in the chair." So I'm sitting in Johnny Cash's favorite leather chair as they're taking pictures of me. And these were the nicest people. And I just thought, holy crap, I cannot believe I just walked in on like a family meeting inside the Cash home. And I'll never forget, I will never forget that. But they were so nice. But it's a cool property, and you absolutely have to go and check it out if you're a Johnny Cash fan.
Okay, so you're allowed to go. They let you on the property. Were you allowed to go in the house normally, or was it a special night that was closed or something?
So normally, yes, normally they will do tours. You can go through the house. And normally the tours are organized. Somebody meets you down there, you
Right.
go in with a group or whatever. And like I mentioned, it was after hours. And the Cash family will still use the property occasionally. And they'll do like songwriting events and other
Okay.
things there. And
Yeah.
they just happened to be there getting ready for an event. And one of the sisters is upstairs sleeping. I mean, I'm telling you, I thought, oh my God, it was embarrassing, but it turned out to be really, really a cool moment.
Well, wouldn't you? I mean, you would expect that Johnny Cash's family, right, coming from Johnny Cash, would be just so gracious, right?
Yes.
It's nice to hear they are. You would hope they would be, and it's nice to hear that they are. I guess is what I'm
They
trying to
were
say.
yes, they were very gracious. And then like one of his nephews is a musician, and he actually will play concerts at the little museum that kind of is, like I said, down the road from the house, where people kind of check in. There's a little museum there, and some other artifacts that belong to Johnny Cash. And so yeah, he plays music, and yeah, they were just really nice. They're very nice people.
Okay, so his boyhood home, Sun Studios, his ranch. Is there a museum too? Is there a Johnny Cash museum somewhere?
Yep. Yep. Downtown Nashville, there's the Johnny Cash Museum, lots of great artifacts, cool videos, all sorts of things relating to Johnny Cash. His cemetery, where he's laid to rest, is in Hendersonville, Tennessee, not too far from where his home was. And then I just actually learned today, this is a place that I haven't been. So you know the song Folsom Prison Blues. I did not realize that there's like a Johnny Cash trail that will take you by the Folsom Prison, which I guess is still a prison. It's in California, Folsom, California. So they've got like a trail with, different, statues and just different things dedicated to Johnny Cash. So lots of places to kind of hone in on your Johnny Cash history.
Johnny Cash, and I'm with you. I came to Johnny Cash lately. My mother, for some reason, was a huge Johnny Cash fan, and I think she was a fan for the same reason you and I are. It's the story of this man who struggled. Right, he had a drug addiction, and he overcame it, and he never really forgot where he came from, and he sang to the common man. Right, I mean that's why he was so beloved by the people in the prison, because but by the luck of the draw, he could have been in prison his whole life. Instead, he turned out to be a famous singer songwriter.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting too, because he, if you know the history of how he got started in music, when he first went to meet with Sam Phillips at Sun Studio, he had these religious songs. And so Sam Phillips was like, "You have a great voice, but you got to go live life a little bit. You got to come back with some songs, some lyrics that have some real life in them." And so he kind of took some time to discover himself and to write some other songs, and that's kind of how he really became successful. And I'll tell you that Sun Studio is unbelievable. If you've never been to Sun Studio, of course, Elvis was discovered there. Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, Roy Orbison did some stuff there. You got, we just mentioned Johnny Cash. And you walk into this little building, and it has not changed since the time Elvis was there. And I just remember the first time that I went, looking up at the ceiling tiles on the ceiling looked like they were about to fall down. Seriously, nothing has changed. Man, what just a mecca for music fans, and just this real sacred place for music, at least from the late 50s, early 60s.
I didn't know you could go visit Sun Studio. That's the have you seen the Broadway show Million Dollar Quartet?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what that's the it really happened where Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins, all showed up at Sun Records on one night, and they were all in the same room and did a recording or showed up together and had a soda or something. But they were all there
during
at
the
the
holidays.
same time.
Yeah, right. It was during the holidays. They were there, and Sam Phillips, in his brilliance, decided to hit record, and they recorded everything that had happened. And so they were gathered around the piano, and so that, if you've seen that musical, it's a true story. But when you're in that studio, you'll stand at one of the microphones that they would have used when they were there, and it's just, I tell you what, when you hear an original Elvis Presley recording from his early days in Sun Studio over the speakers in that studio, you will get goosebumps. It is a real treat. It's very cool.
Good stuff. Bill Cleveland, Bill on the Road. You had the book signing tonight. Give a plug for your book. Where can we get it?
Yeah, Amazon. Actually, I just found out today. It just cracked the Amazon top 100 for presidential books today. So Amazon.com, just look up presidential road trips, and help me move up the list.
Yeah, and maybe some people from some city will go and try and find Bill Cleveland, but it's Bill Cleveland.
Hey, you buy the book, I don't care what you call me.
When are you going to Cleveland? Then you'd be Bill Cleveland in Cleveland.
It's too late to get that complicated. Yeah.
BillOnTheRoad.com. Bill Cleveland, good stuff tonight. Thanks for checking in. We'll let you get back on the road, and we'll check in with you next Thursday. Thanks, man.
All right, man. See you. Bye.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, Johnny Cash. Yeah, what a great story. I love those boyhood home tours. I could do that for the rest of my life, all day long. Stay right there. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Miss a portion of tonight's show?